This is a Chainsaw Man update. I have read through volume 11 of the English trades, and this is the endpoint for part 1. And after this book was reached this point in the weekly Shonen Jump, Fujimoto took time off and he did Look Back, which is an outstanding graphic novel, and he did Goodbye Eri, which I have and am ready to read. And I have to say that this is the series that surprised me the most, because I read this at the behest of one of my sons, not the comic book son, the other one that is really into anime. And at his behest, I read this. And the first 2 or 3 issues, you're wondering what is going on. And I think Fujimoto is trying to find his footing. But by volume 4, it really starts kicking. By the end of volume 3, you can tell it's going to get good. In volume 4, it gets good. This is a wild book. If you're not familiar with it, basically in the world, and this book is set like, I would say in the 90s. In the world, there are devils. And there are devil hunters. These are either humans that hunt them devils, or they're sometimes humans that have like a devil host, but they decide to kill other devil hunters. And there's actually like the major countries have like assigned units within the government that go after these devils. And so when you first read it, the main character Denji comes across as just like this horny young teenager, but there is development and growth through the book. And this is the thing about the book: there are scenes of wild action, carnage. You have that Breaking Bad, Sopranos thing of where almost any character can die, and a lot of them die unexpectedly. And sometimes they're characters that are just there briefly, and sometimes they're characters that have been there a long time. So when they're gone, you're like really like astonished, because you've gotten to like these characters, and these characters have shown growth and change, mostly for the better. So if they're dead, it's like, oh man, it's like, oh, what a shame. So I really like this, because aside from the craziness that I was talking about, the action, Fujimoto does a really good job of instilling very interesting character traits in his characters and growing the characters. There's a lot of discussions between characters that are really personal and show emotional vulnerability, if that's the right term. So it's definitely not your typical shonen manga. Definitely not. This is probably pushing the envelope for what can be in Shonen Jump, but I enjoyed it. You have a wide cast of heroes, or let's say the good guys, and devils, the bad guys, and they just keep being introduced. This reminds me a lot of like Grant Morrison's X-Men run, where you would just have new mutants. I mean, different types of mutants, just different ones coming out all the time, and they weren't redundant. So I've enjoyed this. I'm going to take a break from this because they're at volume 16. So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is part 2. I'm going to wait till part 2 is mostly done to go back to read this, but there are some other Fujimoto books and other comics I want to read. But I really enjoyed this. You may want to try out, I'm sure you can get these at a local library. This is one of the biggest weekly mangas in the world. There's a huge fan base, not only for the manga, but for the anime. I think the anime first season ends at volume 4, if I'm not mistaken. It's not all 11 volumes. But this is a lot of fun and unexpectedly emotionally touching. You get to like some of these characters, and really you kind of like them. They become, one of your things that you see them pop up. You're like, oh yeah, great, okay, I like this character. And then if they're gone, you're like, oh man, they're gone. And then you're like, oh, you get bummed out because you're like, oh, I really like this character. So it has that. And that was probably the thing that surprised me the most. So long story short, if you want to try something different, try it. I would read the first 3 or 4 volumes until you really make a decision, because I think Fujimoto really gets into gear and figures out a lot of things by the end of 3 and then into volume 4. And that's it. Yeah, it's Weekly Shonen Jump, but good comics are good comics wherever they come from, and these are good comics. And the sales and the fan base show that it resonates with a lot of people. Anyway, thanks.